Hey everybody, this is Josh Runquist here for the Heavy Debriefings YouTube channel, and it's time to do another edition of Out Today and What I Missed for February 7th, 2025. I am here to do a little bit less than last week where I covered all of January 2025, where hopefully going forward I'll be doing this on a weekly basis, and I put myself at a cap for 30 album reviews a week. That way it saves my mental spirit, and also YouTube didn't like it when I put that many videos up at a time last week, and I had to scale things back a bit, so hopefully I'll just be doing that in the future. And also, are you tired of just seeing the thumbnail and the album covers? Do you want to see my handsome and or ugly face again in these reviews? Please let me know, because I am very much considering putting myself back on camera again. I do have the setup for it. Last year I got really aggravated by some YouTube comments, but a lot has changed in the past year, and I no longer care about the people who want to make fun of the way that I look. I'm just here to talk about good music. That's what matters to me. So why don't you let me know down below. Should I put my face back in these reviews, or should I just stick with the album covers? You let me know. But until then, let's get into it. First up, we have Days of Jupiter with The World Was Never Enough. Is this kind of based off James Bond? I'd like to think so, just slightly different so they don't get sued, but honestly it's probably not. This is some hard-hitting modern rock, modern metal, radio rock, radio metal stuff from Sweden. This is the band's 5th album, and it's a stunning display of how to make music that hits so hard for both old school and new school fans. Combining what has worked with the band over their previous albums, but still finding a new way to change things up, make it just as catchy, make it just as relevant in 2025 can be a very hard thing to do, but the band has done that stunningly. The production hits hard, the songwriting is just so catchy and knows when to be heavy and when to let it ride. That musicianship is so tight, especially for this kind of music where you have to be right on the beat. They do it so well. This is how you make that modern rock, modern metal sound and just do it so flawlessly. Seriously, if this sounds intriguing to you at all, give this one a shot. Oh boy, here we go. Next up is Dream Theater with Parasomnia, and this is gonna ruffle some feathers for the diehard fans, diehard haters, and probably everyone in between. I'm gonna be straight up with this one, as Dream Theater was my favorite band from 2003 to probably 2019, and I'm only gonna say my own thoughts. Nothing's gonna be sensationalized. I'm not gonna kiss anyone's ass, but I'm also not gonna straight up hate either. It's just honesty from a lapsed fan. All of that said, this is not the worst Dream Theater album. It easily beats albums like When Dream and Day Unite, or Systematic Chaos, or The Astonishing. If you're coming into Dream Theater 40 years into their career, expecting a brand new era of the band, something riveting in its innovation, mind-melting time signatures they've never done before, or really anything out of the ordinary for this band, you're only disappointing yourself because you know this is not it. That said, if you were looking for an album that has proficient musicianship, the signatures and tropes that you love from the band, those quirks that have always been there, and that familiarity that comes from the band in the 21st century, especially with Train of Thought, this is that album. Some moments disappoint me on here because as I've gotten older, my favorite songs have been penned by John Mayong. There's none of that here. There are moments that I wish could have happened more, like Jordan Rudess just going bonkers. It does happen on the Shadow Man incident for a little bit, but that's not enough. And in all honesty, I wanted more originality on this album. But this album, as dark as it gets in tone, it does feel like an old security blanket or an old pair of shoes. You may not think about them while they're gone. You might have moved on to something new to replace that security blanket or shoes, but when you put on that blanket, you put on those old shoes again, you feel that familiarity, the remembrance, the nostalgic for simpler times, and wow, do we need that in 2025 more than ever before. This is that album, and you're not going to get the most prolific, life-changing album out of Parasomnia. It's not going to be regarded as the best Dream Theater album unless you were brand new to the band and this is your first album, but after 16 albums, does it really need to be? As many moments as I hear from Train of Thought onwards, especially as I am in many songs on here, I'm also well-versed in their songwriting, so I know when they're going to do like the melodic solo, the technical solos, when James LaBrie is going to come in, the refrains, the quirky moments, the genre bending, all of that stuff. I know when it's going to happen before they get to those points, but I also don't need them to do anything different but put out solid music at this point. Parasomnia does that for the most part. There's other nitpicks I can make, but this is already getting long, but I will say if you want an album that hits everything you loved about the band in the past, at least in the 21st century, maybe hints at how the band is going to finish their career, you should give this one a shot, because if you're a lapsed fan like me, a diehard fan in either direction of the old stuff, the new stuff, the Mancini stuff, whatever, it's at least worth checking out to see if it's for you and how they're gonna end their career. This easily could be their penultimate episode. This could be the start of another 3 or 4 albums left before they get to the final one, but it's near the end, and I really think they should end on Metropolis Part 3, or really it should be, in my opinion, Metropolis Part 4, The Search for Part 3. If you've ever been a fan, you owe it to yourself to see how they're gonna cross the finish line. Up next, we have the 3rd album from Majestica, known as Powertrain, an album that I've been chomping at the bit to hear, and I could have heard it earlier, but I've been sick since October, so that falls on me. The 3rd album from this outstanding power metal band has gone on quite the adventure, and in those 3 albums, they have covered the styles of melodic but heavy power metal with such ease, and they even did a power metal album of A Christmas Carol in its entirety, with their own special spices and flavorings as their sophomore album. This gets back to more non-secular stuff going on here, as it does everything that put them on the map. All the songs on this one are fun and such a treat to listen to over and over again, with their soaring vocals, songwriting that goes back to that breakneck speed, to the softer, more content moments but never losing sight of who they are, which of course is power metal. Sorry for the pun there, but this is a majestic album from start to finish, and if you want to hear how the genre should be done in 2025, look no further than Majestica, easily one of the best straight-up power metal albums of 2025. Up next, we have the first solo album from Marco Hietala with Roses from the Deep. He's finally put out his first solo album, and the world is a little better for it in the shit-stained year known as 2025. After leaving Nightwish, Marco has put a lot of effort into creating his vision of a solo album. This is not a straight-up symphonic, gothic, power metal album of any sorts. You'd expect something like that, right? Because he's done such a magnificent job in the genre for decades. Maybe you want to hear I Still Wish I Had an Angel, or I Wish I Had an Angel Part 2, 2 Wish, 2 Angel. No, none of that. It ranges from hard rock to blues rock to horror-inspired work, even 80s-inspired music, and so much more that you'll just have to check out for yourself. I don't want to give it all away. But don't fret, he didn't completely forget where he came from. There are triumphant keyboard moments throughout the album that might remind you somewhat of Nightwish, and of course magnificent bass work. But of course, Tarja shows up to do a magnificent job on a song that is very reminiscent to Led Zeppelin, and if you listen to the lyrics, you might see where he's coming from. This album is all over the map, but are all consistent with each other. I love seeing this kind of variety, but you're not going to hear anything like a dance pop track go into a grind track on this one. It is varied, but it's so enjoyable, all in that rock and almost metal style. It's great to see Marco making music again the way that he wants to make it. It's about time, and since I interviewed Marco on his final appearance with Nightwish, if you checked out that interview, I really hope that you got that PS5 and you've been gaming the hell out of it. Next up is the band Saber with Lost in Flames. The sophomore album from this LA band is a perfect love letter to that late 70s to mid 80s era of metal with that special blend of heavy metal and speed metal. Every track is a catchy rendition of how the genre should be made in 2025. From blazing fast tracks to the occasional slower tempo, outstanding vocals, and musicianship that sounds so good on the album. But I can only imagine how much better this is going to sound live than on record. This is a short and sweet album with 8 tracks, almost 29 minutes long. They give us their magic and disappear like Toad the Wet Sprocket. This is a perfect length for an opening set for bigger bands that are coming to town. I mean, that half-hour set playing the entire album, mwah, perfect. If you dig the likes of Haunt and White Wizard, and especially Enforcer, Saber is a band that you need in your life right now. Up next is Sayor with Amidst the Ruins. This band has yet to put out a subpar album, be it under their original name or since they changed the name to Sayor. But with their 6th album, Amidst the Ruins, the band may have put out their most emotionally gripping album to date. Every track, though there's only 5 on this go around, they are longer tracks after all, has moments that make me weep and a couple times where I just full-blown cry at its beauty. Despite this only being 5 tracks, it's nearly an hour long at 58 minutes, with the short song coming in at a little over 8 minutes with their acoustic folk-driven number, my apologies, The Sylvan Embrace. Every other track is emotionally driven, blackened folk metal that'll make you feel like you're on this mythical journey in the mountains, and it just makes you sob at the beauty when you actually stand on the edge of a mountain and look at everything around you. That music perfectly cascades every emotional feeling about that with the way it's arranged and performed. This one hits even harder when you know the lyrics. Is it the band's finest moment? I really can't answer that, because that'd be saying some of the rest of their catalog is lesser in some way, and I honestly don't feel that way. But I will say this is some of the finest moments the band has ever been been doing under this name. This will be the folk metal album of 2025, and every other band in this style is going to have to try their damnedest to knock it out of that pedestal, or mountaintop in this case. Seriously, if you need this one, if you appreciate captivating blackened folk metal, you'll be so glad that you gave this one a chance. And now with everything that I've missed, pretty much all of these are from January 2025, unless there's some albums that came out before February 7th in February that I just didn't get to. Again, I'm trying to keep this under 30 albums, starting with the band that I'm so sorry for butchering this, but I know I'm going to, Bradir with Liminal Spaces. This is an album that I wanted to include last week, but I just had to cut it off at 50 at that point. But this is the third album from this Italian prog metal band that really feels like a comforting mix of classic and modern prog. Like, it feels as much like Dream Theater and Fate's Warning as it does Haken or Leprous or Vola. The mix of old and new is what makes this album stand out, especially with its stellar modern production style, moments that you won't see coming. This is an exciting prog album from start to finish, and it might exactly be what the doctor ordered if you're looking for some really good prog. Give this one a proper listen if you are that kind of prog fan, and you just might be won over like I've been. And ending things with the brand new albums out today is the latest album from one of the most engaging and thought-provoking bands in black gaze and post-black, known as Unrequited with Pathway to the Moon. And what might be their most commercial-sounding album in the band's discography? I say that with a question mark. The band has created an otherworldly feel on this album that is filled with so much emotion and sensational songwriting that this one you could easily weep to, just like Sayor that I mentioned earlier. With this being their staggering 7th album in 9 years, this one-man Canadian outfit has made a perfect blend of what it's like, of that wonder of being in space and the loneliness of leaving everything you know behind. Whether it's a real pathway to the moon or exploring the rest of the universe, it feels dark, it feels kind of scary, it feels very soothing. It's just got a little bit of everything, and it might be the most amount of clean vocals that's ever been in Unrequited, and I do appreciate that. It is an album that is better with no preconceived notions behind it, going in with no expectations, so I might have just ruined that, but you know, you should just sit down with this album anyways, go into a dark room, especially this time of year where it feels so dark and cold all the time. Put this one on and just drift away. It may be exactly what you need in 2025. I know it has been for me. Up next is Burn Down Eden with Dismal Epiphany. The fourth album from this German melodeath band comes in nice and fiery, feeling like a grand mix of that thrashy end of 90s melodeath and some pummeling modern death metal of the 21st century. Every track on here feels like that vicious blend in its songwriting, mixed in with that clear and perfect production style that still leaves room to just be raw enough. It feels like a grand mix of that Slaughter of the Soul era at the gates, my apologies, the Black Dahlia Murder, and do I hear some Darkest Tower vibes in there as well? Yes, I do. Seriously, if you love the heavier end of melodeath and still want plenty of those melodies and harmonies that you hear in 21st century melodeath, Burn Down Eden is exactly what you need. Up next, we have Disrupted with Stinking Death. This is pure, unadulterated 90s death metal. The kind of death metal done with those HM2 pedals that just has that signature buzzsaw tone that brings back better times in life and just brings back those old school death metal vibes. The songs are so heavy and they hit that part of your brain that just makes you want to rage. Even someone like me that doesn't go to the pit, this could bring me out. 10 songs at just a tad over 40 minutes. This is the perfect length for this style of death metal. While there's no innovation or genre bending on this one, there's absolutely no need for it. It's HM2 pedal death metal, and that's what I want it to be. It just has to be that pure death metal that was perfected in the 90s and has been done maybe to death ever since, but the bands who do it right do it so amazingly well. Check out Disrupted if you love that sound and you need it back in your life before it starts to stink like death. Sorry for the bad pun. Now we got the latest album from Ebonheart with Face Our Fear. Wow, what a fantastic display of progressive power metal going on here. Norway has always had a great sense of how to do this genre, from Pagan's Mind to Conception, and going into the more extreme sides of progressive metal like Borknagar and Arcturus. And for 3 albums now, Ebonheart, well, there have been some lineup changes and sadly they're still ongoing. Face Our Fear is such a fantastic display of full speed power metal with just the right tinges is a progressive metal, and do I hear a little more modern day electronic in moments? Yeah, I kinda do. To make this music diverse and so enjoyable. The sing-along choruses are fantastic, the production style fits like a glove, and the songwriting stays intriguing from beginning to end. Ebon Heart is for any kind of power metal fan, progressive metal fan, or those who just enjoy the quality of both sides of that kind of metal. Now we got Formosa with Pyrite. This is brand new to me, some awesome German hard rock and power metal going on here, and that bit of 80s sleaze hard rock that I love as well, with this latest album from Formosa. The band has always had a great sense of catchy hard rock, especially when I gone back and checked out their other albums. They get just heavy enough while still having those great moments of 70s and 80s hard rock, all done with a modern filter. There are the moments of sleaze and metal and some popular moments that I kind of hinted at, but this album is a great modern throwback from start to finish. Like, if you appreciate any of those genres, they are all here in strides. Whether you want something from Scorpions, Dokken, Kiss and Dynamite, there is something here for you. And if you're just looking for that kind of revival metal sound, done just different enough so it's not just the same kind of hard rock, power metal, speed metal stuff going on, check out Formosa. Up now, we got Forsaken Hill with the Fortress of Solitude. And what a perfect year to talk about the Fortress of Solitude with the brand new Superman movie coming out in July. Really hope it doesn't suck. But you know what doesn't suck? This album. I didn't realize I needed an album like this until it came across me, and I'm so happy that it did. This is the third album from this German band, and it's my first foray into the band, but I swear it won't be my last. I need to check out those previous two albums, but I love what I'm hearing here. It's melodeath, it's epic power metal, there's tinges of folk metal, some a little bit more than others, and overall a style I wish more bands were doing. That melodeath, black metal, epic power metal sound. It's just perfection. The closest I can think of is like comparing a band like Crimson Shadows, who kind of does the same thing, but this goes a bit more into the epic side of things, which I find really cool. Especially on that first listen, you have no idea where the music's gonna go, and especially when that first track hits and then you start to hear the clean vocals, your jaw starts to hit the ground, and that's exactly what I needed when I first heard it. The twists and turns are all over this album and are pure magic, and I need more. Thankfully, there's two other albums that I need to explore, and I just might do that after I write this up. If you want adventurous melodeath, look no further. This is exactly how it's done. Up now, we have the Lovecraftian symphonic post-black band, The Great Old Ones, with Kadath. The fifth album from this now long-running band is easily their most grandiose and inspired album to date. Its moments that feel majestic and otherworldly are a false sense of security as you learn that feeling is that Lovecraftian-inspired horror. Those tentacles come out and grab you and you're about to be destroyed. If the name of the band doesn't give away, I'm not sure what else would. The music is easily some of their best. They just continue to improve every time in what I call symphonic post-black. The band created an epic horror album for the ages. It is just so filled with twists and turns while creating some of the most captivating riffs, melodies, and harmonies that you'll hear in this genre. If you love this style of music, horror, both, or just want to try something new to discover, if you're just that adventurous, give this one a shot and see if their tentacles will pull you in. Just be very careful. Up next is Lysergic with Black and Blue. This is a debut album, and the first one I'm actually covering this week, a debut album, but this time coming from this Portuguese outfit, a 33-minute metallic onslaught that is some of the most intriguing that I've heard in quite some time. I hear as much melodeath as I hear 2000s era of metalcore as I do melodic metal. Well, at least musically. Vocally, it's like straight up growls. That's the pure chaos of it all. Imagine a grand mix of Winter Sun and Killswitch Engage, and you have a winning combination for someone like myself. It can get quite epic and majestic as often as it does get into riffs that make you want to head into the pit. This is such a winning combination, and I can't wait to see what comes next. If this sounds intriguing to you at all, I implore you to check this one out, and I really do think you'll be pleasantly won over if you love the right amount of melody in your melodeath. Coming up next is Maceration, or Maceration depending on your pronunciation, with Serpent Devourment. This is the third album from this Danish death metal band, and it's funny because their debut album came out in 1992. Then 30 years later, they released their sophomore album with Dan Swano on vocals, and it was so awesome to hear like two pure death metal vocals again, his first time since Edge of Sanity called it quits. But 3 years after that particular album, they are back with their full-fledged lineup, and I really hope it sticks this time because because I love what they're doing with this lineup. And it's some of the most pummeling death metal in 2025 so far. With just the right amount of moments to let up tension, this is a nearly 40-minute chaotic album that is just that HM2 inspired death metal that crushes you from pillar to post. I appreciate that there are moments of melodies and harmonies that you would not expect in the brutality of the music. I'm pretty sure that's why Dan Swano had his hand in the last album. That's how you do it. You don't make it brutal 100% of the time, or it just stops being brutal. You have to have an ebb and flow. If you love that classic era of death metal that feels like a grand mix of early day Edge of Sanity, Grave, and especially Bloodbath, this is tailor-made for you. Go check it out. Up next is Majestina Saga with Blood Moss Agate. This is the fourth album from this Japanese symphonic gothic metal band, and I was not expecting to get a promo like this year, but I'm so glad that I did. Well, I'd be lying if I understood the lyrics or the themes going on here. I do love the emotion with how they're sung, mixed with that style of symphonic, gothic, modern, and J-rock stylings. This is a winning combination for anyone who digs those styles. And of course it's got those down-tuned 7 strings, the symphonics from start to finish, mainly keyboard, but of course with a band like this. But it's got those gorgeous melodies and harmonies on every instrument, and that overall sense of fun and wonder that makes it stand out amongst the others. While I can't say this will be for everyone, if you fit into this categorization, this was meant for you. If you need some pure epic music, give this one a shot. Up next, we have the debut album from a Ukrainian radio hard rock and a little bit of radio metal going on here with No Apology with Uncovered. Again, this is a debut album from this Ukrainian band, and they are without a shadow of a doubt a hard rock band that would fit so perfectly on American hard rock radio here in the States, but they have these metal tinges that really make them stand out on the heavier edge of things. You just don't get the occasional blast beat and rock music, do you? The music crushes and the production makes everything feel so polished. Of course, you'll hear those down-tuned 7 strings, vocal melodies you would expect, maybe a little bit of a hailstorm kind of feel behind them, and no screams or growls throughout the album. And it's, again, weird hearing this kind of music have blast beats and clean vocals over top of it, but hey, it does work, which is exactly why it should be on the radio here. I'd put it on the radio if I was in charge of a Cheva station, and I'd be playing it on a regular basis. This is a dark, rough, and sadly realistic album made for 2025 and the world we currently live in. It's also cathartic for the same reason. If you need something that feels like a plea in 2025 for some kind of sanity, you have to check this one out. Up next is the third album from this Twin Cities-based band known as Plague of Stars with Extinction. With a couple lineup changes over the years, this band has gone through quite the journey, and it's so cool to see that they are from the Twin Cities, and I know several members of the band. This is the side of death metal-centric music that you just don't hear here, mainly because there's so many elements of death metal, black metal, doom, and gothic metal going on here, with one key exception. It's all clean vocals. So this will catch some people off guard. This will absolutely not be for some people, but you just might need that in your life to kind of buckle your stance a little bit. Might be a little jarring for you, but maybe you need that jarring. The music is dark and captivating, and you never truly know what direction it's going to be going in. Is it going to be going darker? Is it going to be going heavier? More blast beats? More gothic? It's all here. The production is clear, but just right and raw enough to fit the atmosphere that they're trying to pull off, and the musicianship on hand makes you pay attention, as everyone knows when to show off their chops and when to play for the songs. They've been rocking the Minnesota scene for quite a bit of time now, but in 2025, with that new lineup, the band is just begging to be heard in your ears, not just the Twin Cities ears in 2025. Try it and see what I mean. Up next, we have Queen of Dreams with Subnivium. This is a sophomore album from another kind of local Midwest band for me. At least it's a few hours away from my original hometown. This is from Madison, Wisconsin, and it's a very welcoming surprise because this doesn't feel American in the slightest. This feels like pure, unadulterated European progressive power metal, but it's so weird that it comes from just a few hours away from my original hometown. With some of the catchiest chorus I've heard in this style of music in quite a bit of time, especially when so many bands are trying to shift away from this style and trying to be more modern metal, it's so refreshing to hear that progressive power metal sticking so strong, especially in America. Everyone completely shines throughout this, and it's so engaging with its songs that you want to hear it from beginning to end. This is how you make a genre like this even catchier and more memorable. If you want a band that soars as high as it treads, you really need to check this one out and see if it's for your ears. It is just pure bliss for that progressive power metal style. Up next, we have Selvans with Saturnalia, and this is quite the experience. My first foray into this band, so I'm not familiar with what they did before this, but this is not at all what I was expecting, and I'm so much happier for that reason. It is a grand mix of progressive black metal, prog rock, and heavy metal. It truly feels as if Merciful Fate and King Diamond made real black metal, or what black metal eventually became. Everything from the riffs to the falsettos pull this off flawlessly, and its added sinister black metal overtones, and especially those cleans, makes the album truly stand out in the darkness before it drags you to hell. It can be a whimsical album, especially if you find King Diamond and Merciful Fate whimsical, but it will put a smile on your face. With everything going in the right direction for this album, I don't know if their previous material sounds like this. Seeing the description on Metallum, it doesn't, but I am going to go back and check it out because I want to see what else they're capable of. But if this is new for them, I hope they keep doing this till the bitter end, because this is how you innovate something like black metal while tipping your hat to the past. What a sensational album. Up now, we have the debut album from Soaring with their self-titled album. This is soothing and post-black. That is not a combination you would normally find go hand in hand, unless you are very well versed in the genre and you can pick out those bands that can do both. But even Soaring, this French band, combines the best of black gaze, shoegaze, other occasional genre-bending moments, and again, just that calmness that creates a sound that hits like the likes of Alcest, Lantlos, Explosions in the Sky, and Astronoid all at the same time. This 4-track EP, even though it comes in at 33 minutes, come on, that's an album length, and just because it's 4 songs doesn't mean that it's not an album. It's one of the calmest metal albums I've heard, and it's exactly what I needed without ever knowing it. And I know that I have, and I need more. I'm so excited to see where this band goes from here, but if this is any kind of standing point, the sky's the limit going forward. While I know this won't be for everyone, I implore you to give it a shot if you need something that is in that black gaze, post-black style, but will just make you feel calm. I swear this will be up your alley. Up next, we have Skuldar with Samsur, and I deeply apologize if I got either of those words wrong. With how dark, chilling, and heart-wrenching this album is, you would imagine this band to be from like the darkest, coldest regions of Scandinavia, right? I mean, when you look at their profile pictures, it's all of them dressed up in the corpse paint, that pure black metal aesthetic, standing in the woods, so yeah, like Scandinavia, right? Wrong. They're from Virginia, of all places, creating this cold combination of immortal dissection and the occasional Borknagar riff, especially that early day stuff. The production is raw but very enjoyable. The songwriting is brutally cold and the atmosphere is off the charts. This is a sinister sounding album, and it's so strange to hear something like this made in the USA, which made it quite the spectacle to me. I couldn't be more impressed with how this one turned out for that second wave black metal sound, but done with just enough 21st century black metal thrown in. If you're a black metal fan, no matter the era, this just might do something for you, and I highly recommend that you check it out. Up next, we have Sorrow Blue with Elegy for a Bleak Autumn. Wouldn't you know it, another debut album here, but this time coming from a Brazilian death doom duo, and it couldn't be any more in my wheelhouse. It's crippling sad with its 90s style of that Peaceville 3 death doom that will always work no matter what kind of band does it, but it has just enough variation going on for that gothic tinged death doom that we all know and love. They even end the album with a cover of Catatonia's I Break, so I think you know the kind of direction that they're going for this one. If that's not enough of a reason to give this album a shot, well, I guess you're just not in the gothic death doom, are you? 11 tracks and almost an hour long, it feels just right for this kind of style. It doesn't get overly long, it's not overly short either. And I only see the band refining their sound and improving from here on out. If you love the genre, you need to give this one a proper listen because they're only going to get bigger and better from here on out. Alright, for all you speed metal freaks out there, don't think I forgot about you. I have the brand new sophomore album from this Portuguese outfit known as Speed Demon with The Fall of Man. This sophomore album is everything that I love about speed metal rolled into one. 9 tracks, 33 minutes, 33 seconds, pure unadulterated speed metal with just a little bit of an instrumental track to let you catch your breath before the onslaught before and after just pummels you. I can't put it any simpler than this. If you love speed metal, you will love this album. No matter how fast or just a little bit slower it gets, it never loses momentum, and it's just pure speed metal. What more could you possibly ask for? Next up, we have Swept to Sea with Lost Shores. This is a debut album from the San Francisco outfit that just perfectly blends that second wave metalcore sound with just the right amount of hardcore in perfect harmony. The hardcore moments really have those breakdown moments, those chug-chug riffs that just fit so perfectly in that hardcore sound, and they're built for the pit. But those metalcore moments that come through there really showcase the musicality of the band that are just melodic enough, but just heavy enough. That perfect blend of 2000s metalcore. So perfect. It can be so punishing, but then hit you with a melodic riff that you just won't see coming, and it'll just floor you. 40.5 minutes, 11 tracks with one instrumental track to let you breathe. It's just a perfect length for this album, and if you want that hardcore tinged metalcore done right, this is a band for you, and you need it in your life. Go check it out right now. Now we have the perfect tribute to 90s technical and progressive death metal here, with unreal overflows with Slaves to the Inhuman Future World. 4 albums into the Spanish band's career, and they just keep getting better and better. What is clearly a loving tribute at this point to the genre of progressive and technical death metal from the early 90s. This is all the best moments of the big three, Death, Cynic, and Atheist, all rolled into one. With the vocals and guitar madness of Death, the progressive elements of Cynic, and the bonkers moments that Atheist was always known for, this is a band that finds a way to still sound authentic and original despite their clear influences. This makes you appreciate what came before, and it makes you want to hear more from this band, and hoping other bands will do this kind of style in 2025 and beyond. This is what I love about the genre, and it gives me hope for the future. Well, not lyrically. I mean, lyrically it shows that we're doomed, and we probably are, but at least the music will serve as a great soundtrack to our demise. If you love the big three of the 90s progressive and technical death metal, you will love this one. Up next, we have Esquam with Ex Nihilo, and if I got your band name wrong, I deeply apologize. This is another debut album, this time coming from France, and this is such a sensational release. All of my senses get destroyed by listening to it. This is everything that I love about mellow black, symphonic black, epic black metal, all of it rolled into one. With that latter-day Keep of Calcian feel, that really make things interesting and unexpected. It gets so crushing, and yet it has this melodic sense to all of it, probably thanks to the symphonics of it all, that keeps you intrigued despite all the chaos that persists. Black metal done like this gets me so excited every time, and I can't wait to see where they go from here because this is just their debut LP. They're only gonna get better from here on out, and if you want a truly epic piece of mellow black, pick up this one right now. Coming up next is a band name that I know I'm gonna get wrong, and I'm so sorry for getting it wrong, but here's my attempt. Uliata Tagir with their self-titled album. The first truly bonkers avant-garde album that I've heard this year, and it's not for the faint of heart. In what truly feels like an unholy mix of Behemoth and Pensie's Nocturne. No, seriously. This band has written an album that feels like the soundtrack to hell, while still having moments that makes you feel like you're in a 1930s crime noir. I know, that sounds crazy, right? And it changes on the turn of a dime without hesitation, and the musicianship on hand is just off the charts. This pushes the limits of blackened death metal with that avant-garde and quirky moments, and of course, that trumpet that makes you feel like you're in black and white. If you really like music on the wild side, this is an album you not only need to hear, but to experience. And finally, we end things with some of the darkest, coldest black metal that you're gonna hear all year with Void Raw, with Only Cold Winds Will Carry My Name. And no, that was not meant as a pun. Finally, this German black metal band's sophomore album is one of the coldest albums that I've heard in quite some while. It's dark, depressing, it's filled with raw terror from everything from its instrumentation to its chilling vocal delivery. It's a raw album, but it still sounds quite clear. It's very audible and enjoyable, hitting everything from that 90s era of second wave black metal to the blast beat driven style of black metal that most people associate with the genre. This is a welcoming mix of different black metal thrown together. It feels just as good to hear in 2025 as it would have in 1995. It's as true and cult as it gets, folks. It's an absolute winner of a black metal release, especially for a cold year that is 2025, and I say that with the temperature next week as I'm recording this going to be hitting -20 again, so you know it's gonna suck around here, and this will perfectly match that tone. And there you go, folks, 30 brand new album reviews for Out Today and What I Missed for February 7th, 2024. We covered so much great ground here, from some of the most soothing music to some of the most chaotic and absurd music that I've heard in 2025 so far. So what do you think? Did I cover some good music? Did I cover some bad music? Did I leave out anything? And remember, if I did leave out something, it might be showing up next week in Out Today and What I Missed, because I still have plenty of music from January I haven't even touched yet. And make sure to come back next Friday, not only for Out Today and What I Missed, but because it'll be on Valentine's Day 2025. I can't wait to be able to show off what's supposed to be the most lovey-dovey day of the year with some of the most brand new music of 2025 so far. And it's a doozy of a list that I got so far. I can't wait to see what I add to it. But until then, for the Heavy Debriefings YouTube channel, this is Josh Runquist saying, embrace the skillet.